If you're watching this video, there's a pretty big chance that you're a fan of video games in some way, shape, or form. Each and every year, we are given hours and hours of new content in the form of these wonderful artistic showcases that sometimes push the envelope of what it means to tell stories, what it means to be fun, what it means to feel, and so many other emotions that can only be described as incredible. If you've been a fan of gaming in 2026, however, there seems to be a pretty big problem in the industry right now, as well as in the gaming community as a whole. Today, I want to discuss what I think is leading the gaming industry and gamers as a whole into a downward spiral, the reason that everything seems worse, and how I think we can move forward in an ever-changing industry. Chapter 1: Content Creators and the Hive Mind. While the title of this chapter may seem a bit clickbaity, rest assured, I have no problem with content creators on their own. In fact, I love a large amount of gaming content creators, but there are some that stand out as bad actors. You see, if any of you have been on Twitter in the past 3 years or so, you might have noticed that there's been this odd shift from having normal, well-articulated and thought-out opinions to these extremely hyperbolic and absurd opinions used to generate clicks for ad revenue. Many people call stuff like this rage bait, but I think there's a lot more to it than just rage baiting the unsuspecting gamer. A lot of these we'll call bots, rehash and repost the same opinions over and over again, while on their own they don't really do much. It's when a prominent creator regurgitates the same thing that they really gain that visibility that they're looking for. A sudden tweet from one of these content creators immediately brings out the bad actors of gaming, mobilizing the forces that they control to immediately start negative conversations. There are even plenty of small creators who do the same thing, trying to gain viewership. The constant push of hyperbolic negative opinions for money, as well as a large audience, combines into what is effectively a hive mind of negativity that doesn't have an off button. This is how we end up with what I'm calling the Concord call, where when the hive mind finds a game that they don't like, Concord, Highguard, and now Marathon, they dub it Concord and then a number, which is currently Concord 3 in the case of Marathon. This Concord call acts like a beacon that says, hey, hate on this game right now and make sure everyone everywhere knows that we think it sucks super bad. Make memes and shitposts, edit the cover to say Concord X, make dead memes. Make sure that you push the player count number propaganda or they might think the game is successful. This game doesn't even have to be like Concord to get the call. Again, look at Marathon, which only has the aspect of being a first-person shooter in common with Concord. This is the only part of the whole offensive. This is only part of the whole problem though, as the hive mind does actually have an effect on games. While I personally didn't find Highguard too offensive, the constant swath of negativity brought that game down faster than it deserved, with it only lasting 2 full days longer than the day before, which, need I remind you, was a literal scam with no value at all, full of lies and broken promises. That game lasted nearly as long as Highguard. It doesn't take a genius to know that that's absurd, and I fear that this will become worse as long as we continue to engage in this negative feedback loop. Chapter 2: Live Player Counts. While a barrage of shitposts and bad actors will push anything to the front of negativity, nothing has been more validating to the hive mind than the live player count tracker. This simple number gives people in the hive mind more than enough power to justify literally any talking point that they have. Look, DEI is ruining gaming. Look how bad insert game is doing. Oh man, this game has less active players than this other game. Look at this number. Aside from the fact that all these arguments are stupid, almost none of the people parroting these statements take into account context for why player counts are the way they are. Let's take a look at a recent example with Marathon and Slay the Spire 2. On launch day, within 24 hours, Marathon hit a peak player count of 88,337 concurrent players, and as of the writing of this script, has a bit under half of that many active players at 39,923. Now looking at Slay the Spire 2, within 48 hours of its launch, it hit a peak player count of 574,638, and is currently sitting at 156,160 at the time of this writing. To those who don't understand context, or those who are trying to push the player count agenda, it's pretty cut and dry that Marathon is a failure, AAA slop game, and Slay the Spire is the Giga Chad indie. But that's not the whole story, is it? Marathon is an extraction shooter, one of the most hardcore kinds of shooters there is in terms of playstyle, and unlike its competition in Arc Raiders, it's leaning into the hardcore aspect more like the game it's trying to emulate, Escape from Tarkov. That alone should beget a smaller player count. Not to mention, Bungie, the developers of Marathon, are mostly console focused as a company, and we don't know the console numbers. If I I were to be like the player count chuds, I'd point out that Slay the Spire's 2 drop-off is near 80% compared to Marathon's near 50%, even though they released on the same day. But that would be ignoring the context of the most recent Slay the Spire 2 update being poorly received, and thus likely leading to less players engaging until the next update. All of this is to say that clearly the player count argument is stupid because, well, there's so much context that gets left out for people who just push the narrative that it falls apart even under the tiniest amount of scrutiny. A lot of people think we should remove live player counts from Steam's tracking, and I honestly agree. The only people who should see those player counts are developers who actually benefit from the knowledge, and not players who make it their whole personality to shit on games based on low player numbers. Chapter 3. The Savior Game. You might be wondering, what is the Savior Game? The Savior Game is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's the game that people point to that will, quote, save gaming. What that means is it's the game that people will try to push to be popular because it fits the mold that the hive mind believes pushes their narrative the best. They'll say things like, there's not enough hot fuckable women in gaming anymore, but look at Stellar Blade. It's gonna be the game that saves the game industry from the woke, unsexy woman. But a large majority of these people couldn't name the Stellar Blade protagonist, or probably haven't even played it. Another example of the Savior Game was Slay the Spire 2, as it pushed the player count narrative against Marathon in a way that propelled it to the hive mind. The Savior games are often pretty solid overall. Black Myth Wukong, Stellar Blade, Crimson Desert, all examples and all pretty good games, all things considered. But to bring them to the Savior status, the hive mind tries to elevate these games to pillars of godlike status that no other game can touch, because this is the game for them. Constant glazing of these games and always attacking those who dare voice an opposing opinion. Crimson Desert gets decently above average reviews at a 78 overall Metacritic, and suddenly all game reviewers that didn't give it a 90 or higher are the spawn of the devil and deserve to have their journalism license revoked. Oh, the horror, someone has a different opinion of the game that I elevated to an overly high status because of my agenda pushing ways. Whatever will I do? To then immediately forget that they even cared the moment the Savior game leaves the spotlight, and then move on to the next shiny object like a child with no object permanence. Even funnier is that the most recent Savior game, Crimson Desert, also has a lower player count than Slay the Spire 2, so I wonder if that game is a failure too by their own logic. There's not even a way to stop the Savior game from appearing like the other two chapters, as people are always going to hype games and there will always be the next big Savior game, but when the Savior game combines with the other two concepts, it grows out of control and the hive mind loves to take advantage of hysteria and chaos. Chapter 4. Reviews. It should be no surprise that I'm mentioning reviews in this video, but not in the way that you might be anticipating. While reviews and reviewers can sometimes be misinformed and appear to lack critical gaming ability, we're looking at you, Polygon, the reviews themselves are not the overarching problem. It's people's reception of those reviews that makes them problematic. Let's look at Crimson Desert, the game that has garnered both critical acclaim from some outlets and critical disdain from others. Something that you might expect in a yearly review cycle for a load of different games. This ends up giving Crimson Desert a 78 overall on Metacritic, which is well above average. However, since Crimson Desert is this cycle's savior game, the hive mind looks at the above average score and complains about the lack of ability in all reviews, saying that reviewers have no idea what they're talking about and bashing their ability as gamers. It's no secret that sometimes video game journalists are not the best at games. However, they don't have to be, because reviews are not objective. They are based on subjective opinion. If a player is bad at the game, then that's fine, because it may not be for them, or there may be an adjustment period. But a reviewer's job is to make sure people are informed, not to tell you what is good or bad. I know a large amount of you are probably thinking about the Cuphead video right now, and are going, man, but look at IGN, they do shit like this all the time and their gameplay sucks too. But in reality, there's a few flaws in your thinking there. Number one, that infamous Cuphead video is not connected to IGN whatsoever. It's actually from a GamesBeat journalist, but for some reason is often credited to Polygon or IGN for the simple reason of hive mind brain activity being lower than most. And number two is that you don't have to agree with a review. People swear by arc raiders, and it's got an immensely popular fan base, but I didn't really like it that much. It just doesn't fit my playstyle. On the other hand, Halo 5 is widely panned as the worst Halo game in the franchise by a country mile, but as someone who really only played multiplayer, it was one of my favorite Halo multiplayer experiences over some of the more popular Halo games. Something to mention is that most big game review companies have hundreds of people working for them, and not every journalist is going to think the same way that you do. When looking for reviews, try to find people who have similar tastes to you, or look for people who try to be fair while also throwing in some personal stuff like game ranks, just to give an example. I also want to say that reviewers also need to have a quality standard. There are plenty of people who wouldn't have purchased Crimson Desert due to the usage of AI art, but not many reviews for the game even mention it, even though the embargo was up nearly a week before the game's launch and people were playing it 2 weeks before that. All this is to say that we don't need to treat reviews like gospel or an indictment of our favorite games, but just as a way to look at products before making an informed decision on purchasing them. Chapter 5. Generative AI. Oh boy, here it is, the big one. AI may be one of the largest topics in the current day and age as a whole, not even including gaming. I'm not going to discuss all of the negatives that come with AI. That's for someone with much more time than I have and someone who is a lot more knowledgeable on the subject. Today, I'm going to talk about AI and generative AI in the gaming space and how it affects quality of games as a whole. Let's get this out of the way first. I think generative AI in the creative space is bad for art and artists. Unfortunately, there has been a large push to use generative AI in the AAA gaming space for the last handful of years, and not even some of the best are safe from this push. Black Ops 7 contains a large number of AI-generated assets. Expedition 33 and Crimson Desert both contained AI-generated artwork at launch and patched them out later. Even Larian Studios, people responsible for Baldur's Gate 3, have admitted to using some form of AI during the production of their new game Divinity. In the case of Crimson Desert, Expedition 33, and Black Ops 7 going so far as to not disclose the usage of AI assets while putting the game on Steam, which is a huge red flag. Now you might be saying to yourself, but Expedition 33 and Crimson Desert removed the AI assets, and you'd be correct. They did do that, and there's nothing wrong with taking them out, but the problem is that they still use them in the first place. Generative AI is inherently anti-art regardless of what you may think about it. It is the direct cause of loss of jobs in the gaming industry across all major factions. It's extremely soulless and oftentimes just plain bad looking. And while it is good that some devs are doing their part to get rid of it, there are still plenty more who do not care and will continue to try to push it until it's no longer profitable. I'd be willing to bet that the next Call of Duty will have a substantial amount of AI-generated content in it, and millions of people will still buy the game because most either don't know or don't care. More games will have generative AI, and they will use all the money that they save with it to enrich themselves and fuck over the employees that work tirelessly to deliver content for the game amidst crunch and forced overtime, only to be fired after the AI. Then there's the ignorant ones who push AI and seemingly think that it will make the games industry better, all while complaining that the current gaming industry sucks and doesn't cater to their every whim. But I guarantee that those same people couldn't name a single game that came out better because of generative AI. But what about using placeholders? Placeholders should be fine for AI. No. I don't care about the context of the use. Slay the Spire 2 is a game that released in early access this year and has a load of placeholder images, and they have so much more character than shitty, terribly generated AI images. I don't care about placeholders. Do what Slay the Spire did. Do stick figures for all I care. It does not matter. AI is making games worse, full stop. And while we got some great news regarding OpenAI closing down Sora, there's still a long way to go when it comes to the dismantling of AI, and those who choose to continue to push AI in games and products in general are currently in the minority when it comes to the will of the people and gamers alike. I just sat here and yapped for a long time about a large number of topics. I wouldn't be surprised if this was my longest video to date with just how much I covered. Let it be known that there is obviously a lot more that goes into making the games industry shitty, and if I tried to cover it all in just this one video, I might be here all day. Make no mistake though, all of the things that I spoke about today are real, and they are all problems contributing to the whole. I hope a lot of you can see just how bad this stuff is getting, and while I'm optimistic for the future, we can't get there if we don't support one another. If for whatever reason this video blows up, I want to give a shout out to a lot of the creators that fight the good fight, even if it means that their views are lower because they speak against what is popular in the algorithm. I'll have a few creators linked in the description that I think you should check out, and I hope you all enjoyed this video. Expect a few more lighthearted videos for the next couple of videos. With that being said though, I'll see you all in the next one.